Joining me today is Raj, and we're going to be discussing the recent breaches within major Australian companies. As you know, what's been happening out there in the market. You've seen what people are saying online, you've seen what media outlets have been talking about. So talk to me, Raj, about your view on Australian businesses. Do you think that they are complacent regarding their security posture?
Not at all. I think they're working harder than they ever have, and they are, looking for the right partners to add value to them. But right now, they also need some space to work internally, understand what their current status is, their current baseline of acceptable risk, and looking to reprioritize their approach moving forward. That window in which they're operating in, of course, takes into consideration an element of risk appetite while they are making these plans and readjustments and approaches. But at the same time, they are working very hard to get internal stakeholders aware of the increasing landscape. And this is where I believe it's incumbent on vendors and partners to look for opportunities to add incremental value and to be patient and to provide a consulting-based approach to where do you want to focus, where would you like assistance, and this is where we believe we can add value in the quickest time to value, and again, be respectful of the amount of priorities that these executives are dealing with right now.
So do you think there needs to be a bit of a culture change towards how people view CISOs or heads of security or whoever, with maybe people are very fixated on just selling a product and it's not really about that, it's about listening, it's about being present, all the things that you and I have already discussed anyway throughout this series.
Yeah, as we have previously talked about, cybersecurity is no longer just an IT problem, and it's definitely, a boardroom discussion. But cybersecurity is the responsibility of everyone in an organization. Where is the weakest link? So, what can we do to better educate and better secure our employees and our teams and our organization and our environment? But I feel that it's very important that we start to have different conversations with different people in the organization. And that means give some space to the CISO and the CIO.
How do we give space?
By actually helping them and talking to other stakeholders in an organization.
So not being on their back day in, day out.
How great would it be if I can come back after 2 or 3 months of talking to different stakeholders and different executives in the financial organization, financial stream of the organization, the procurement side, the project side, outside of IT, HR. They don't typically get called by cybersecurity vendors and partners. It's something that is always that phone call to the CISO or to the IT manager and the infrastructure manager, who again are a bit exhausted by that. But if I've done a lot of that groundwork for them to say, hey, I've spent a lot of time speaking to your organization, and this is how IT impacts them in a positive way and a negative way. This is the way they view cyber. This is their understanding of the controls you have in place. And they actually have some really great ideas that could probably help you accelerate a lot of your plans. I think that's a very interesting approach, and I think a very valuable one if we choose to invest our time and energy to do that for them.
Yeah, and I guess you're right when it comes to giving people space, right? Like when you're dealing with the complexity with something like Palo Alto, for example, it's not like buying a widget, right? It's a little bit more to it than that. And I think that there are other people in the business that need to make a decision and look at it from multiple angles. So do you sort of approach, I guess being consultative is one thing, but more holistically?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that is probably one of our biggest privileges, that we have so much that we can add value to and so much that we can talk about. I guess I'm fortunate enough to have, almost 2 decades of exposure to this industry and understanding the multiple different attack vectors that organizations and individuals need to think about. So therefore, taking a step back and having a holistic view to a particular project or a problem provides an opportunity to think longer term on how a decision today will impact future growth opportunities for that organization, or how adding another tool will add more complexity and therefore increase their risk posture because of that complexity. So again, that goes back to other things we've talked about in the past, which is we have to feel comfortable in challenging an opinion and
Sure.
really talking about how we can get to a longer term view and a longer term vision.
Yes.
And that's done by looking at things holistically and not in isolation.
So Raj, you've spoken a lot about over our sort of series about, being honest, have a level of integrity. If you met with a customer and you were like, this isn't right for Palo Alto, would you walk away from the deal knowing that you potentially could have had a deal, but you wanted to do the right thing? What would be your approach?
From my personal experience, absolutely something that I've done and something that I would continue to do. It's about being honest, which is, not every conversation is a deal. And I think sometimes either we need to learn to understand that we can't be everything to everyone. And it's very important to understand where we add value and if that's a priority for the client, versus if a customer or a client is looking for something that we know we can do, but there's alternative options for them, particularly because they have other factors that are taking priority, then we need to be very honest always and say, we can meet your requirements, but I believe you have other options that might meet your other criteria or your other priorities. That again is something that is a meaningful conversation, is something that they'll remember. And what tends to happen is that we get the opportunity to meet again, and the next time we want to move forward with something, they know it's absolutely an area that we can add significant value to them.
So you've acknowledged the fact that you may meet with someone and you potentially, could do something, with the company, but then you're like, actually, it's not the right fit. I'm going to walk away and I'm going to say, no, we can't help you. Maybe you should look at other potential competitors to you. So that's something that really, you've got a very strong sense of integrity.
Absolutely.
Would you say because of that, that's what's really helped you in your career over the tenure of the 18 years?
It allows me to keep more friends and sleep safely at night and comfortable at night, knowing that, again, it's just about my own individual personal values on integrity and not lying.
That's the way it should be.
Absolutely. And I'm not saying that's not everyone's intention, but little white lies creep in from time to time, through some natural human behavior. But unfortunately, I think that's a bit short-sighted and will always catch up on those individuals.
So if you had maybe some advice for people that are listening and watching this interview, that perhaps maybe it's intentional, maybe it's unintentional, I don't know, but maybe they are doing things like that that's not right by the customer, what would you sort of say to them?
I mean, the thing is, any great sales individual is typically someone that believes in what they're doing and believes in what they're doing is the best. So it's very hard. It's a bit of a contradictory situation where you want to walk away from doing an effective job, believing what you're doing is the right thing for the client versus knowing that there's alternative options. I think it goes back to, again, experience and really, past success that you want to replicate. So my advice would be, whatever you believe is the truth to your own self, then I think you need to continue to just be honest all the time. I think that's always the best medicine. It's always the right answer. You can't lie about facts, and I think the truth always is present.
And that's obviously something that you lead with every day.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that you engender into your sales team.
Yeah, it's something that we spend a lot of time talking about, and being truth and honest is also, I have a tendency to be very direct, and sometimes people are a bit surprised with honest feedback. But I think that it also goes back into respecting people's time, which is, if you want to give feedback to your team or to your customers and your partners, you need to be comfortable and always honest on what's working and what's not working, so you can actually resolve it. If it's actually a respectable and meaningful relationship you want to improve, then you need to be able to address the issues or your experience in a certain situation, so we can collectively work on it to improve it.
Why do you think people are surprised?
Because we want to be accepted by everyone, and we want to be nice to everyone, and you can be nice, but I get asked sometimes questions like, hey, I just want to get your opinion on something, and I'm like, do you want me to respond with what you want to hear, and they're like, no, we want the RAJ answer. I'm like, okay, well,
What's the RAJ
yeah,
answer?
just as in I understand what you think is a certain way, or what you believe is a certain way, and I can totally accept that and totally understand it. But for example, I think this is where you'll face challenges with that, which is, again, I think I'm very comfortable, and this is what I would love to see with everyone, just being comfortable, just to say, well, I can understand why you believe that or why you think that, but I actually disagree with it because I've seen it play out a different way, and that's just from my experience. I think that's a pretty fun conversation to have, because you start to learn about each other and from each other on how and why people behave a certain way. So this gets into the whole psychological part of selling, and again, the reason why you'll have a relationship by making people feel a certain way, and why they'll call you back and see you again and continue a conversation, which gets you to a point where then really, how privileged it is when someone calls you and says, hey, I've got a question. I don't know if you can help me, but I just want to ask you. That's a privileged conversation to have from any customer or partner that calls you, and because they value your opinion.
Do you think it rattles people a little bit if we've got the RAJ way, which you've shared, thank you, but most people probably don't have the RAJ way. Most people are like, yes, 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 we can do it all, we can do it all. But you're just like, actually, no, maybe we can't. Do you think that if perhaps more people applied the RAJ approach?
Let's not call it that.
Well, less common. And I've got that approach too, right? Which is why I like you. And it's not common, right? So do you think if people had that approach, maybe the culture towards salespeople would change a little bit?
I think it's definitely present among many of us, not only in our organization, but of course in the industry. There's many people that have those values, and they are consistent with providing honest, repeatable success to their customers and their partners, driven by their values of being honest and having integrity in their dealings, and that's what allows them to have longevity,
Absolutely.
in any industry. And I think that is something that is a choice from an individual, and it's something that you can't really teach someone to think that way. It's something that they have to realize that is very important in today's day and age, in any walk of life, I would say, and something that I talk to my kids about as an example. They may not be sales professionals when they grow up, but I think that integrity, hard work, and honesty is I think going to be beneficial in any capacity, in any type of role, and again, that is so important, because that is actually what we all want from each other, which is just be honest, just be yourself, and I think more importantly, it's actually meant to be fun. I know it's a stressful topic, and I know it's a stressful amount of work, but it's actually, this is so great, because if we actually work together and listen to each other and listen to understand, and if we can get to the outcome in the timelines that you've asked for, then what a great honor it is for us to be part of that success. And then let's celebrate that, and then let's earn that trust so we get asked again the next time you need something. So I think that is the excitement part, and that's what keeps me super excited about this industry, and a privilege to be part of.
What do you think earns the trust?
Consistency, honesty, and hard work, like delivering on the promises you're making your customers and your partners, being available. I think that's something that's for me. I would call you back as soon as I get the chance.
Test it out next time.
Absolutely. But I think everyone's busy. But I think.
Even if it's an acknowledgement, hey Raj, I'm caught up, I'm in an offsite for 2 days, I'll call you back on Friday.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think everyone has a different style and a different approach and different commitments personally and professionally. But I think we have to acknowledge our obligation to each other and responsibility to each other. And I think that in itself is something that may be present, but I'd like to see more of across the industry, which is it's hard for the executives, right? Because they're going to get 400 missed calls today from 400 different vendors, and then another 20 or 30 recruiters calling them because talent is so hard to find in this industry.
Right.
But I'm just talking about our obligations as a supplier, as a vendor, and as a partner to our customers. I think we need to provide them with consistency, and as well as the outcomes they're looking for in the quickest possible time.
So I want to sort of hone in on your values personally as Raj Sharma, but then also I want to zoom out on Palo Alto's sort of values. Would you be able to share those with me today?
Yeah, my values are very much honesty and fun and hard work. And of course,
we share the same values.
Yeah, absolutely. They've always been something that I've made all my decisions on. It's got to be fun, got to be honest. You can't lie from the truth, and facts always come out. And the old saying of if you're honest, you don't have to remember anything.
So true. It's not as draining.
Absolutely. That tends to help me make a lot of new decisions every day. And then in regards to the organisation, our values are very much around collaboration, execution. Diversity, and it ties into a lot of the things that I relate to, and that's why I've been here for almost a decade, because we have done a great job in delivering on a lot of those values by growing into something very special and having very much like-minded people with relatable values that allows us to learn from each other. So I think we're in a very exciting time, in a very exciting place, and we all know that we have a very clear mission to make the world safer today than the one yesterday, and we take that very seriously.
So what gets you excited for the future?
It's interesting how quickly IT and cyber are moving. It's interesting how much the industry is accelerating. It's also quite fascinating to me that I felt I was a IT geek / I love my technology, I love my gadgets, but it's amazing to see my 10-year-old daughter teach me stuff on the phone.
Wow.
and stuff that some of the games that they're playing, and it's so hard for me to process, even though I live and breathe IT and technology all the time. So it's weird that I don't know that, and it doesn't come naturally to me.
Sure.
Which I think then presents amazing acceleration to great things for many different type of customers and many different type of industries. While at the same time, it's important to also acknowledge that we'll continue to introduce more different type of threats and more complexity into. So I think it's exciting that we always have a lot of work to do, and I enjoy it.
Well, Raj, I think you've been nothing but honest. I think we do share the same values as human beings. You are obviously very hardworking, and I do really appreciate you talking to me today, giving your time, giving some of your insights as well, and taking a different approach on the industry, not slamming people, but having that level of empathy and situational awareness for different people in their positions. So I really do appreciate you taking the time to talk with me today.
Thank you so much.